Welcome back to The Explainer. Today we're diving into a story that is basically an endless, dramatic cycle of just absolute devastation and miraculous comebacks. I mean, we're talking about a place that has taken a serious beating. Foreign invasions, fires that wiped out practically everything, catastrophic plagues, literal bombs raining from the sky. And yet, every single time, it rebuilds, it adapts, and it comes back so much stronger. We're unpacking the wild 2,000-year evolution of London. Now, to really get why this history matters to us today, consider this. Right now, nearly 40% of Londoners were born outside the UK. Think about that for a second. If you stand on any given street corner in the city, you're going to hear a dozen different languages in as many minutes. It's undeniably one of the most culturally diverse, globally connected cities on the planet. But, as you can probably guess, it absolutely did not start out that way.
Which brings us to the big question for today's explainer. How exactly did this random patch of marshland, sitting along a muddy tidal river, a spot that was pretty much strategically useless to everyone, transform into the beating heart of a global empire? How does a tiny, muddy trading post turn into this massive modern megacity? Okay, let's dive into this. Part 1, Roman Roots and Total Collapse.
We kind of have to rewind 2 millennia to see how the foundation of this city was laid, and honestly, how fast it ran into its first existential threat. So 43 AD, 4 Roman legions land in Britain. They push inland, and they just need a place to cross the River Thames. So they pick the lowest crossing point, and bam, Londinium is established. Within a decade, it's a booming port. But then, fast forward to 60 AD, and disaster strikes. Queen Boudica of the Iceni tribe marches right in and burns the whole place to the ground. Actually, modern archaeologists have found this permanent layer of red ash right beneath London streets, literally a physical scar of that exact destruction. Wild, right? But the Romans did what Romans do. They rebuilt it even bigger. They threw up these massive walls, and the population swelled to 60,000 citizens. It became a proper Roman city. Amphitheaters, forums, the whole shebang. But then, 410 AD rolls around. The Roman Empire is crumbling. The legions pack up and pull out. And without those Roman trade networks keeping things afloat, Londinium's economy completely tanks. The merchants leave, craftsmen bounce, and the city is just left to rot, dropping down to a few hundred people squatting in the ruins.
Which leads us to Part 2, Saxons, Vikings, and Norman kings. So for like 2 whole centuries, those grand Roman buildings just sat there, crumbling into weed-choked ruins. But the river was still flowing, right? And it eventually attracted new arrivals who totally flipped the city's geography. Enter the Saxons. Now, they were farmers, and they were actually pretty creeped out by these giant, decaying stone ruins. They thought they were cursed. They literally called them the work of giants. So instead of moving in, they built their own exposed settlement about a mile west called Londonwick. And it did great. It grew into a thriving trading hub. But then the Vikings showed up. After Norse raiders completely trashed Londonwick over and over again in the 9th century, King Alfred the Great realized he had to make a massive strategic pivot. He ditched the exposed settlement and forced everyone to pack up and move back inside those giant ancient Roman walls for safety. He patched up the defenses, and the city was rebranded as Londonburg, the London Fortress.
So the crucial point here is that those ancient walls literally saved them. But the whole vibe of the city shifted drastically again in 1066. William the Conqueror wins the Battle of Hastings, and boom, the Anglo-Saxon era abruptly ends. The Normans decide they're going to rebuild England in their own image. Now, William doesn't exactly trust the locals in London. So what's his move? He builds 3 massive fortresses to keep them oppressed and in check. The biggest of these is the absolutely terrifying Tower of London. The central keep, the White Tower, was a brutal statement in stone. We're talking 90 feet high, with walls up to 12 feet thick. It was designed to keep a rebellious population terrified and in line. And it worked. It established this intense symbol of royal power that has stuck around for 1,000 years.
Moving right along to Part 3, Disease, Fire, and Cultural Boom.
All right, stepping into the medieval era, London is finally starting to really thrive again. You've got these powerful guilds popping up, they build this stunning new stone London Bridge. But, as you might have noticed, the overarching theme of today's explainer is that catastrophe is always waiting right around the corner. The grim mechanical causality of the 1348 Black Death started so simply. Ships pull into the docks, and they're carrying rats. Those rats are carrying fleas, and those fleas are carrying the bacteria Yersinia pestis. The result was absolutely visceral and horrifying. Within 2 years, bodies were piling up way faster than they could even be buried. They had to dig these massive mass graves in the fields outside the city walls. In a terrifyingly short amount of time, a population of maybe 80,000 people was suddenly sliced right in half.
But, incredibly, despite the utter nightmare of the plague, London goes on to experience this insane population boom. Take a look at these numbers. By 1500, the city had clawed its way back up to 50,000 people, and then it just completely explodes. By 1600, it's at 200,000. By 1650, 400,000 people. So what exactly fueled this? Well, Henry VIII had his big break with Rome, which meant he shut down all the monasteries, grabbed massive tracts of land, and sold them off, sparking a huge housing boom. Then you follow that up with Queen Elizabeth I, who basically turns London into the cultural capital of Europe. I mean, this is when Shakespeare is staging Hamlet at the Globe Theatre. Plus, huge trading wealth is just pouring in. Almost overnight, London becomes the largest city in Europe.
There was just one glaring problem, though. The city was built almost entirely out of timber, complete with thatched roofs and these super narrow, overhanging streets. It was, quite literally, a giant tinderbox just waiting for a spark. And on September 2nd, 1666, it got one. The Great Fire of London started in a little bakery on Pudding Lane. Driven by super strong winds, this terrifying inferno just tore through those cramped streets. It completely leveled an astonishing 85% of the city inside the ancient walls.
I really want you to grasp the scale of this. The devastation was absolute. 87 churches were reduced to ash in a matter of days. 87! And that included the magnificent, massive old St. Paul's Cathedral. 13,000 houses just gone. When the smoke finally cleared, hundreds of thousands of people were left utterly homeless, staring at a blackened wasteland. Yet here's the craziest statistic of all. The officially recorded death toll from the fire itself? 6 people. Just 6. And weirdly enough, this massive catastrophe essentially cleared the board. It gave architect Christopher Wren a blank canvas to reimagine the whole city. Now, his grandest, most ambitious urban plans were ultimately rejected, but they did pass strict new building regulations. From then on, the city had to be rebuilt using brick and stone instead of timber and thatch, making it infinitely safer. Oh, and Wren did eventually get to rebuild St. Paul's Cathedral. He gave it that iconic dome, fundamentally changing the London skyline forever.
All right, skipping ahead, let's look at part 4, the Victorian industrial megacity.
As we leap into the 19th century, fueled by the staggering wealth of an expanding global empire and the Industrial Revolution, London morphs into a 6.5 million-person industrial behemoth. But this crazy boom created a super stark, deeply disturbing picture of Victorian inequality. On one side of town, you had the extravagant wealth and immense comfort of neighborhoods like Mayfair and Belgravia. But then on the other side, you had the desperate, cramped, cholera-ridden slums of the East End. It's wild to think about. The absolute richest empire the world had ever seen was coexisting back-to-back with thick choking smog, contaminated drinking water, rampant poverty, and the terrifying crime sprees of figures like Jack the Ripper. It was a city of absolute mind-bending extremes squished together.
To keep this chaotic megacity from completely collapsing in on itself, the Victorians had to engineer some massive fixes. In 1851, they host the Great Exhibition in the Crystal Palace, basically flexing their industrial might to 6 million visitors. But beneath the surface, the infrastructure was failing miserably. In fact, in 1858, the pollution in the river got so horrific, it caused what was called the Great Stink. It smelled so bad, it literally forced Parliament to stop working and shut down. This finally prompted Joseph Bazalgette to step up and build a massive modern sewer system, a system that, believe it or not, is actually still in use today. And to move all those millions of people around without gridlocking the streets, 1863 saw the opening of the world's very first underground subway system.
Which brings us to our final chapter, part 5, War, Rubble, and Modern Rebirth.
So London had survived fire, plague, poverty, but going into the 20th century, it was about to face its greatest physical threat yet. And this time, it was falling directly from the sky. Between September 1940 and May 1941, during the Second World War, the Blitz absolutely devastated the capital. German bombers hit the city almost every single night. Over 1 million buildings were damaged or destroyed. Entire historic neighborhoods were just reduced to smoldering rubble. Yet, through all the smoke, St. Paul's Cathedral miraculously stood defiant. It became this huge symbol of resistance. But make no mistake, by the end of the war, London was broke, bombed out, and totally exhausted, dealing with heavy rationing and an empire that was rapidly falling apart.
But, true to its historic form, London resuscitated itself. And it did it through an incredible modern roller coaster of events. In 1948, the Windrush generation arrived from the Caribbean, kicking off massive waves of global immigration that would completely revitalize the city's culture and economy. Now, they still endured brutal setbacks, like the Great Smog of 1952 that killed an estimated 12,000 people. But the city kept pushing forward, kept adapting. Fast forward to the 1980s, the financial sector exploded with the massive redevelopment of Canary Wharf, right over the old abandoned docks. And by 2012, the Olympic regeneration completely transformed huge chunks of East London.
Which brings us perfectly back to this brilliant quote from our source material today. Through Roman withdrawals, Viking raids, the Black Death, the Great Fire, the Blitz, every single time it gets knocked down, it rebuilds, it adapts. As the quote perfectly sums up, it pulls in new people with new ideas. That's what makes London London. When you really look at it, the true superpower of this city isn't its ancient walls or its financial wealth. It's its messy, complicated, totally relentless ability to embrace new communities and reinvent itself over and over for 2,000 years.
And that is the incredible story of London's catastrophe and comeback. I really hope this explainer gave you a whole new appreciation for the crazy layers of history that are hiding literally right beneath the modern pavement. But hey, the world is absolutely full of fascinating cities with wild histories just waiting to be uncovered. So, I want to hear from you. What city should we explore next? Let me know your suggestions, keep learning, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.